But then we also need to imagine, how can we reimagine uh, providing the services that our clients are seeking? And how can we reimagine the client experience and process? Really, if you think about a lot of the repetitive tasks that your team has to do, what program could best ameliorate that? I think it would be a great exercise, because I often talk about that, um, for auditing your time and your team's time as to where they're spending their efforts.
Welcome and thank you for joining us for another Justia webinar. My name is Lavinia and I will be the moderator for today. Now, to kick things off, I wanted to introduce our speaker, Ruby Powers. Ruby L. Powers is a board-certified immigration attorney and founder of Powers Law Group PC. She also has over 16 years of experience in law practice management. She is the author of the AILA's Build and Manage Your Successful Immigration Law Practice Without Losing Your Mind, and her book, Power Up Your Practice, available on Amazon. Ruby shares invaluable knowledge on law practice management and small business consulting. Through Power Strategy Law Group LLC, she provides strategic consulting services and hosts the informative podcast, Power Up Your Practice, launched in 2024. With a commitment to excellence and empowerment, Ruby inspires legal professionals to succeed in their practices and businesses. The webinar presentation will be approximately 1 hour. If you have any questions that come up during the presentation, please feel free to submit them at the Q&A button at the control panel at the bottom of your screen. Now, without further ado, here is Ruby to discuss future-proofing your legal practice, strategic AI integration for modern law firms.
Thank you so much, and glad to see everyone here. And this is definitely a really great and hot topic, and we're always improving and finding ways to learn and improve our firms, and as we grow as professionals. This is some exciting times. I really use ChatGPT, even though that's not the only tool out there. We know that, but as sort of like a litmus test of like who keeps it open on the regular or has some other alternative that they love. And how long have you been using it these last few years? I mean, we've had AI for like, I think they say 50 or 60 years or something like that, but it really felt like it's gone mainstream when ChatGPT came out. And then, just as she was mentioning a little bit about my bio, one of the other, I sort of divide myself up into a couple buckets. Like, one is law practice management, having my firm for 16 years, Powers Law Group. It's a full service immigration law firm. But the other one is that law practice management, and you just having run a firm for so long, and I ran it from Dubai back in 2011, 2012. And that really gave me an eye to how can I leverage technology to make like a virtual or remote practice, before it became cool in the pandemic time, when everyone had to find some way to do a hybrid or a remote practice. But within that, I've focused a lot on legal tech as well, because of that time that I had in Dubai, which is also my interest in general. And so I'm actually the co-vice chair of the ABA Tech Show 2026. I spoke at 4 or helped organize 4 legal tech conferences last year, and plan to be going to a lot more this year. So including the TLTF in this November. So anyway, if you're in that space or you want to have any questions, or I'd love to connect and help be a resource as well. So anyway, one of the biggest things I wanted to mention is that I do have a podcast called Power Up Your Practice, and also my book, Power Up Your Practice, available on Amazon. So here are some of the things that I want to cover. But one of the biggest things to note, one thing I'm going to tell you is that I don't really like to give exact names of some companies and programs out there. If it comes about, I will, but because there's just so much change all the time, and there's new ones coming out, and this could get outdated really quickly if we just say this is the best one. And I don't want to say this is the best one, because it takes a lot of effort to get out there and be staying on top of all the different tools that are coming out. So why AI matters in legal practice, 5 areas we can make an impact, and sort of that, when we walk through that, we'll give some practical tips on how to sort of break down the functions of the firm, and where you can go and where would be the best bang for your buck for your a return on investment. Real world examples and how to choose and implement the right tools and getting the team on board. That buy-in is so critical. I know probably some of you are shaking your head saying, yes, I know. I've tried to go get some cool tools. I bring it back to the team and then they're like, no. But anyway, we don't want that to happen, right? I have a story about that. And then how to track success and avoid common pitfalls, and then what's some action items. So for me, I don't want this to just come in one ear and out the other. I hope you're staying intently engaged in this, or whenever you're listening now or later. But what I would suggest to get the most out of this is to write down what your key to do takeaway items are. Whether that's, look into this tool, have my team watch this webinar, assign someone to evaluate your tech stack, check out some new tools, subscribe to some AI tech newsletters and start listening to some of those podcasts. So action steps, I think that you walk away from that. And a bonus tip would be to block off some time to actually put those things into implementation. Those that would probably be the best way to get the most out of today's webinar. Okay. So, my goodness, there's just been a huge shift. It's exciting. I've been practicing 17 years, so I wasn't around with the time when they had the secretaries and they dictated or in the little dictaphone things. I heard the stories about when email came out to lawyers and they said that they were not going to, some people said they weren't going to use it and they were going to boycott it or something like that. Um, there's the faster internet, the cloud, more prevalent around 2008 or so. If I wouldn't have been able to run my law firm from Dubai in 2011, 2012, if I hadn't had the tools that I did. I used Dropbox and Skype and the Google G Suite, and I had a Skype like local number, but and I had fast internet. And also I had cloud-based case management software. But if those tools hadn't existed, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And so that's what's really fascinating here is we have our paradigm shift. What's possible, but it comes along with what are the tools available to us, and then it comes to as what are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to do? Um, I really like the future of it's the future of professions by Suskin. I forgot his first name right at the top of my head, but he has another AI book that just came out. But we think about what are we really trying to do. Sometimes when we get better tech or tools, we just think, oh, we'll just be faster or better or something like that. And that's really what we initially think. But then we also need to imagine how can we reimagine uh, providing the services that our clients are seeking, and how can we reimagine the client experience and process. There could be a whole nother way that could be done. And before I get too far ahead into this conversation, but think about other areas of practice, not or areas of industry, and what they're doing with AI and technology. When you think about maybe communicating with like Amazon, for example, you barely ever talk to a human. Almost everything is done through their app, and you still feel very informed as to what's going on. They talk about the Domino's pizza tracker. You can order the pizza online, and you can see like I don't know, Susie's preparing the pizza. They put it in the oven. It's out for delivery. In fact, on the app, it like shows the person driving to your house for delivery. It's crazy. But do you have to talk to anybody? No. Do you feel satisfied that you know what's going on? Yes. And so thinking about what's going on in these different areas of industry and how that can better serve your clients. Okay, so then going back to this is an amazing tool that's out there. And how can we best use it? Just like when email became available, um, was it better to start using it, exploring it, and making life easier instead of having to print and mail and spend time with like letters and coming back and forth in that correspondence? Yes. Is it hard to imagine whether if you had a choice between using email and mailing letters to correspondence to your clients, which one, if you had a choice for response time and ease of use, in what situation would you want to use the mail? Of course, we know we do that occasionally for purposes that are required. But if we want to get the message across quickly, efficiently, and less expensively, we would use email. So I think could be a good way to sort of think along the same lines with AI and how can we best use it. So there's so many ways that make you more efficient, can give you a draft faster, to synthesize a lot of data. And so think about what are your pain points are and where you can best use these types of tools. So for I like to break down from writing SOP, standard operating procedures, to evaluating where your pain points are. Um, I like to break down the different functions into these that we have listed here. So think about the client intake and virtual reception space. Um, how could you improve? Where could you use AI? The other one would be onboarding in the consultation process. And another is case management, which a lot of the case management programs out there now have AI components. It's like, it's the fun word to say AI, even though you're not really sure if it really is AI. They're just, it's a big selling point right now. And then the research and drafting, I think that's where we're going to be able to save the most attorney time, because I find in my firm, that's where the attorney and law clerks spend a lot of their time besides the client engagement on like consults and representation and interview and in court. And then I think that the marketing and client communication, we've got a lot of cool new programs out there like Hona and Case Status, that you can add to your case management software, or other tools that you can make automated with a CRM or some Zaps and things like that that you can better serve. And in marketing, that could be its own little bullet on its own because of the way that you can edit videos, have bots respond to your social media, so many different ways. So anyway, if you want to just sort of think about, maybe jot down these 5 different areas, and then as we walk through, think how could you best, what are your biggest pain points, and what how could you best add some technology, some automation, some AI to improve it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with that. Um, so with that first contact, how many of you are using some type of like a bot, in your social media or on your website? You probably have a contact form on your website. There's a company called Law Broker that has a chat with the client on the website that says, are you looking for an immigration attorney? Yes. What type of issue do you have? Removal, humanitarian, family, employment. And then it goes up to about 7 questions, but this could be used for all different areas of law to help get down to the crux of what does the client need, using AI and automation to be able to get that can cut down on time needed by an assistant or a receptionist, but it also can be working 24/7 and can get more information that can be fed on a lead campaign, to find out more and to convert that into a consultation. So you can use these different AI chatbots to be able to collect that information 24/7, and do more pre-screening. And what's really cool right now is the virtual bot reception. I know people like are sort of like they probably is skeptical about it, and then it really has changed like almost month to month because some people looked at it maybe 5 or 6 months ago. They said it was too slow, because if you say hi, welcome to the Powers Law Group, and then there's like too much latency, then people are like, I'm not going to use this. But now there's more programs out there. The technology, the speed has gotten better, that it sounds more natural. So I think, some people might be like, I'm going to wait a little longer for that. Other people might be like, I don't want like the bot to say the wrong thing. I get that. I completely get that. But I think what's happening is the technology is getting better. So keep an eye on that. It might already be good enough for certain things. But I've talked to people who have bots that are scheduling consultations, answer pre-screening, and things like that. Honestly, I'm in the process of trying to find the right tools for my firm, but it's super exciting. So there's like what can be done from like the social media, which I'll get to more in the marketing space, but for responding and trying to convert those inquiries or messages, DMs, I guess, or to a consult. Then there's also the AI bots reception, and then there's also just like the pre-screening on the website with like a chat. Those are just some of the things that we could talk about in this space. And then really, if you think about a lot of the repetitive tasks that your team has to do, what program could best ameliorate that? And honestly, this is all a part of reducing friction and making it easier for clients to hire you, right? So, like, if it takes too long, like for example, I was trying to hire an attorney for something, and I called, and then they said they weren't there and they couldn't schedule, and then I think they called. I don't really know. I literally think it took like 2 weeks to try to do something. And people do not have the attention span for that. Like if you just have, sorry to tell you this if you don't know this, but if you have your phone going to voicemail, people don't trust voicemail. I don't even like my voicemail on my cell phone. I just say you should text or call me, because I'm not going to check it. But anyway, but they're just afraid that nobody's going to listen to it, right? And they don't know so that's why you need to have either the AI bot or a virtual assistant coverage or a reception service that's going to cover your calls. And when you can do it 24/7, generally you can say on Google that you have 24/7 coverage. In my practice, we help people around the world, so we have different time zones. So that's another way that I'm helping serve my clients. So anyway, that's another thing. You want to be able to be more responsive. How can you use these tools? So if you think this is one of your biggest pain points, I would say start looking into one of the things I just mentioned on how to reduce that friction. That could be a little homework assignment. How hard is it to schedule a consult with your firm and find out when people reach out to you, how long does it take? So the document gathering, I don't know about you, if for different practices do different things, but even for a consult, we like to get a lot of information because we want to get the most out of that time that they have with the attorney. So there's ways to send intake forms easily. A lot of people are not working from a computer; you're working off of their smartphone. And so being able to have like forms and responses that they can easily complete in that way or upload documents, maybe with just a click of a couple of buttons. That is definitely something you want to have that ease of use. You want to be able to minimize back and forth emails, having like online scheduling. That was one of the things I was so happy that we finally did recently because anyway, here's a long story. With the firm being as old as it was, and the calendar that we had, and a whole bunch of stuff, we have a few attorneys that can do consults, and then there's different case types and different prices and different time slots. And so a lot of my team was like, "Oh, this is going to be hard and impossible." But I was like, "No, we're going to figure it out. We're going to make it happen." And you know what? I'm so happy we did because what we're starting to see is that we're getting a lot more of our scheduled consults from the online scheduling than ever before. And I think my example is something for firms who've been around for a while. Sometimes it's hard to like, course correct and move the ship around. Sort of think of like the ship that got stuck in the Panama Canal type of thing, like to turn around, right? And that's why it was really hard for certain firms during the pandemic to be able to course correct and to be able to pivot and to have that resiliency. But just I think having that growth mindset that Carol Dweck talked about versus the fixed mindset and how you can make things improve, and not thinking that you have all the answers. I never say I have all the answers. I'm always out there talking, listening, reading, and continuing to learn. And then I like to share what I find out along the way. So reducing that friction, using the technology that's available and making it easier to communicate and move forward. So we talked a lot about those things. And then also just you think about when you go to like a doctor's office, they're texting you like, are you coming or not? Are you going to be there 2 or 3 days? Or like, yeah, if you're not using some type of a tool like that to be able to confirm, usually it has to have a text component to it as well. Then that would be where you should be. You should be using some type of a customer relationship management tool or something that's tied to your case management software. Um, at least, the reason I say that is because you want it to be integrated with where the rest of the data is going to live once they hire, and so you don't want to have to re-data enter that or anything. So find ways to smooth this process, reduce the friction, and making sure that this information is connected as possible. And that's where it can get a little tricky because figuring out how to do everything I just said, and then in the least amount of programs possible so that your team doesn't have to go upload, download, and be in a whole bunch of different programs. It also can improve that data accuracy. So when we're also able to do the online scheduling, which we use Lawmatics for our CRM, and there's a few, there's about four or so legal CRMs, and then some people use non-legal CRMs, or they just use the CRM-esque version of what's in their case management software. Um, but when we were able to connect that, then the data that was coming in from the website forms, from the consultation notes, we were able to move that over to the contracts easily, and then also which was connected to our newsletter process, which was great, that automation. And then if they hired, we were able to push that to our case management software and then not have to re-data enter. Because how many times when you go to like somewhere and they make you re-enter the information you've already given them, how many people like to do that? Nobody likes to do that. That's like the most annoying thing. So don't make your people do that. All right. So anyway, I guess I could talk a lot about that in that beginning stage. So when you think about all the different tasks and deadlines, being able to stay organized, we're moving over more into like case management a little bit here. Um, and you know what? Let me go back over here for one more second. Let's also mention the consultation space because that one is also where I'm working on most right now. Do you use a like Otter or Zoom or some other tool that's recording? Do you ask for permission or to the client, etc. But do you do something like that that helps you take notes? Because then you can quickly automate those notes into your where those notes reside, and also could help you request the contract. So I don't know how you do your firm, but for me, it's like they schedule the consult, they have the consult with the attorney takes notes, and then if the attorney might send a follow-up email or the team does, but they follow up if they don't ask for a contract. Or so really the decision tree is usually requesting a contract by the attorney requests a contract. Having those notes already written up, there's a way to be able to request that contract more easily. The other in the little decision tree could be like they don't want to hire at the moment, but they didn't ask for a contract, but then we follow up with them. And so anyway, you can use AI tools for transcription or notes, a summary. And this really depends on your comfort level of the program that you're using. I'm in the process of getting into this. I'm actually having a meeting on this on Monday for next week because I'm so sort of bad at taking notes. And it's not just that, is I don't have time to take notes and I have to move to the next consult on the next consult. And if there was a way to, which there is, and it was, we felt fine with the security of and the confidentiality of the recording and the client approves, then we'd be able to convert that into quick notes that are more accurate, more detailed, and could also help eliminate the debriefing step that we also incorporate with our firm when the case is opened and the attorney debriefs the legal assistant or attorney working on the case. So if you have any awesome tips on that, feel free to reach out to me because I'm in that space right now, and I'll probably do like a webinar on that because as soon as I figure it out. I'm open to suggestions. Okay, so want to stay organized. There's a lot of different programs out there. There's a lot of great case management softwares. There's Fava and Clio, My Case, Practice Panther. There's a lot of them out there. And there's some that are more case management. I mean, practice specific. There's some that are more in general. And so there's so many different ways to do alerts or updates for timelines. If you really get it organized, you could have every single step that's required for a case. And so the assistant or team member just clicks off as they go through. So it sort of like brings the SOP, the standard operating procedures to life with just some clicks of a button and makes it a little bit easier. Having checklists by the case type, we shouldn't be we shouldn't be copying and pasting docs. We should have all the templates needed. The template should be able to be populated with information. We should be able to use the data that was provided in the initial intake to be pushed over to the data information repository of information that can later be pushed to potential forms or other documents and not have to be re-entered. And then having all of these can help reduce error, human error, and it also can increase the efficiency. And, I guess I might as well mention it here. It's like where that whole conversation about billable hour and the death of the billable hour, the more you find ways to save energy, time, and bandwidth with using these tools, the more it makes sense to charge more of a flat fee once you have a better idea of how much time things take. Now, it could be dependent on your industry. You might be in more of that um, contingency space, and that's different. I get that. But the more you can find ways to save time and use these automation tools, the more you'll be able to have more of a profit, even if you don't change your prices at all. I think we're going to be in an era where firms are going to be lowering some prices in the future potentially, because they're going to be able to increase efficiency. Really, there's this whole debate argument about how a billable hour encourages inefficiency. Now I only use billable hour when I don't know how much time it's going to take because of the uncertainty of like usually advocacy or a court. Now I do know some people who are doing court litigation in a flat fee era. So like I know that's a whole nother conversation, but it does dovetail nicely in this space because you're thinking, because I put all my templates together and I have a great case management tool and I can do a motion to change venue in a click of a button, and is it fair to have to only charge, for, I don't know, 12 minutes because we put all that effort in versus what normally would have taken a lot longer. Now, that's a whole nother conversation, discuss ethics. Yes. But it really is a part of this conversation about efficiency. So, okay, about research time. Wow. So there's so much going on in this space. There's a lot of different programs. I didn't mention all of them, but I can maybe mention some. Um, at this point, there's find okay, let's just get that conversation out there. There was some attorneys that didn't double check the case law and they got in trouble at the beginning. Okay. That was a long time ago. And we all know we're supposed to double check our work. We're supposed to double check if there's hallucinations. But the technology has gotten so much better that, I mean, I feel like that was like decades ago because things are better and we already learned our lesson collectively that we need to double check it. It's like when you ask a law clerk to help you do something, you don't just say, yeah, great, it's all perfect. No, you look at it, you double check it, right? So we got that. So there's programs out there. It's escaping me. There was a really good one I learned about at ABA show. But I'll put some of this on my website and on Power Up Your Practice. about a lot of different great resources for AI. And you can also email me and I'll give you a list of the ones that I've seen and suggest and think are doing great and to keep an eye out for. But anyway, there are like competitors to like the Lexus and the Westlaw that are like lower cost. They're coming out there. And then there's also I think in terms of drafting, let's just go there for a second. We are in a space where we should not be writing for the first time. We should be editing. So, for example, if you were just to use ChatGPT or some other AI tool, of course, a paid version that has the security that you're not putting in client information if it's that I have to say all those caveats, but let's say it is a version that is safe and paid for and you're not putting client information in. If it isn't, then you could get a draft of something really easily, and then you could start working on researching some of the cases and also start inputting that information in. We're in a space where you can get a draft of anything within the matter of minutes, seconds, and then you go from there. And if you upload samples of, if you're in a closed unit tool that you can, your information is safe, then you could even upload templates of the program of documents that you've already had to ask for the tool to put it in the template that you would like it to be in. There's also programs like Drafty AI that's in immigration, but they're growing outside of that space as well, where you can just upload a sample, put in like the client's case, like a statement and some information, and then it can convert it into a brief and a packet. There's also like Parley, Case Blink. There's other programs out there that are doing things like this, and they might be more of your area type specific, but I think that they're growing in size. And right now, there's also programs. I was looking at one this week with Threadio, where they can basically synthesize a lot of data, including medical records, and make a timeline with lists of sources of where they got the information. So, I mean, I guess that's why I like not giving lots of names, because there's lots of new programs that are popping up and I don't know all of them. But what I do see is that if you think about what the capability is, and then when you have these conversations, you're like, wait a minute, how could I use that? So like the one about synthesizing the data, I was thinking, well, a lot of times people hire us after they've had another attorney potentially, and they want to get a second opinion. If we could run their file or their FOIA of their file or something like that through a tool that could give us a timeline, an outline, then that would save us so much time, because we usually have to charge hourly to review that. And then we could get to the point about if we could work on the case or not, if we want to take the case. That's just one example. But also it could help you with drafting a timeline with the statement of facts for a brief, and so many different other ways. So I feel like I've had these conversations just recently. This is something that you can think about, and how could you best, what are some of the things that you spend a lot of time on in the drafting and research space? And how can what, if you could wave your magic wand, what would you love to see be to make it faster? Um, and so I think that those are a really good way, because I don't know about you, but in our firm, this is where we spend a lot of the attorney and law clerk time. And if we could make this done quicker, then we could definitely, be able to be more efficient. And we could also write briefs for cases when sometimes we just don't have the bandwidth to write them, and help have a better chance for the client's prospects. Okay. So you want to have get first drafts. You want to use the templates that you have, make them better. You want to be able to plug in the data that you have, the document automation and document assembly. It will help reduce the risk of human error and maintain the consistency across these documents. And you shouldn't be doing pretty much anything from scratch anymore. And let me just say this 1 second too. you should not you yourself, but also your team. So if you sometimes your team might be doing things the way they were taught in a long time ago, which might have been not too long ago. But you need to make sure that they are using these tools that you are provided so that so that maybe you're paying for this amazing tech stack. And I guess we're going to talk about that soon about about adoption. But if they're not using them properly or are not trained, then you could be completely wasting your resources. So think about how when there's a situation where you're like, wait, I don't think we have a template for this, or we don't have this saved, being able to just start putting that in your bucket of your toolbox of templates and drafts, and training your team to to have to use it on a regular basis. Okay. So let's see. There was a question about time capturing tools, and I I I don't use those, but I know that there's a lot of great ones out there. But I don't know if other people are like to use them or not. But I have heard about them, and it sounds really neat. If they can actually see everything that you're doing. So like tools like Laurel, formerly Time by Ping or Zero. I think from what I've heard is that like it's following you, it can monitor what you're doing, and it helps get that time that you otherwise wouldn't have put in, which we all know that there's probably we're under calculating what we do when the billable hour. But at the same time, if you're not using billable hours, being able to calculate your time, I think would be a great exercise because I often talk about that. Um, for auditing your time and your team's time as to where they're spending their efforts. Like, I think that would be a great experiment, even if you just did it for a couple of weeks, to have the whole firm use one of those tools to see how much time they're spending on different things, and then go in and analyze. And then the ones that take the most amount of time, go there first to figure out how you can best use AI and technology and automation to eliminate or reduce that time usage. Um, so thanks for that question. Feel free to put any questions in, and appreciate that. So going over to we're getting into the marketing space a little bit more and attracting clients. So one of the things um we've got going on is that okay, this is a funny thing. I don't remember what year it was the ChatGPT came out, but the first time I heard about it was like in that January. And the first thing I did was I told my admin, my executive assistant, and my marketing team. They were like the first people I told. And I said, you should use this. You should use this for your copy when you're making LinkedIn posts or social media posts or translations and helping with emails and things like that. And then it didn't occur to me that, and I share this because I'm sort of embarrassed, but I think maybe other people would do the same thing, to tell my legal team about it until a couple months later. And then I was like, wait, they're usually billing at a higher rate, and that's probably where we could better use the efficiency. But anyway, and so I told them about like, let's start finding ways to use this. And so we did. And then now we are working on it's a conversation all the time. Like, we even have like check-ins at our office meetings to say, how are you using AI? How are you finding better ways to be more efficient? And at this point, I'm telling that my team, like, if they're not using an AI tool in some capacity, then I mean, I'm low key upset because I just want to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible. So anyway, that's why I'm talking about this, because I first told my marketing team. My marketing team, my main assistant is a virtual assistant in another country. English is her second language. It's really good. But sometimes what I've noticed is that for it using an AI, a ChatGPT or some other AI tool can help you with better copy. So anyway, we were using it for those posts. You can even put in ChatGPT, help me make a LinkedIn post and put in icons and stuff. I love that one. That's so much fun. But anyway, there's different prompts. And then for blog content, like if we took the transcript of this, if I took the transcript of this hypothetically or webinar, I do. And then I can run it through an AI tool. I can turn that into an article at different lengths, short, long, legal minded, to the more layman terms, conversational, And you can have different links, you can have different tones, so that's another thing. When I was at ABA Tech Show, I forgot what year that was, maybe 22 or 3, I first heard about Otter AI. So I was using that, and that was one of the biggest selling points they mentioned was is to turn your videos into transcripts. And so if you're doing a lot of videos, like a webinar for your firm, you could easily just convert that transcript into blog articles. And I'm all about repurposing content. So this is where you can have so much fun. Um, and of course, like the marketing side, analyze what content is working best. You can use different tools, AI tools for that too. You can personalizing emails to different clients. I mean, we've had some of those things before, but one of the other things that is besides, let's go over to I have a podcast. You can use there's tools out there to get rid of the ums and the ands and also the bad audio that you just like delete it. It's like Descript is one of the good ones right now. Um, Canva everybody's using Canva, I think, these days, and they have an AI component as well. But you really can't you can do marketing like on your own with a low budget now with all these different tools. There's so many good ones out there. One other thing to mention is there is an AI for that. Is a website you can go to, and it basically tells you a directory of all the different AI tools that are out there. Also, when you go to like ChatGPT, you can make your own. You can see what other um, options there are in terms of different chats and group. And so that's also fun to check that out as well. So we're using it for copy, we're using it for analyzing data, we're using it for communicating with clients, and we're using it for editing podcasts and videos. With videos, you can make a longer one, like let's say an hour long. You can make them to smart little clips, shorter little clips. You can have the transcripts and things the subtitles as well. Now, the one that I'm really excited about is also a bot with social media. We're working with a team right now to build that out, but some influencers already have those and they've had them for a while. So that when you're doing a live or you're on your social media, you're active, that you have an automatic response, but not just automatic response, but it's communicating with them and being able to convert them into a consultation. Oh, one of my colleagues has a bot on his social media. When he does lives, he was telling me how he was able to convert with a bot his live session. I don't know how long it was, into about 55 consultations because because he was able to respond to them and convert the ones that needed more of a human touch on the phone versus the ones who could just communicate with the bot and be able to schedule the consultation on their website. So there's a lot of fun ways here. And I think when people are a little more timid about their um, data or which program they're using or the security and confidentiality. Usually, I think this is a good place to experiment. There's a lot less client data, and you're doing more of like that for that outward facing information. So that's, I think, one way I would suggest. Um, so overall, we covered a lot of those 5 different tip areas. Which one is the biggest pain point for you? There's probably a lot within those different 5 ones. But which ones where everything I just said, which one's sort of striking out as an interest that you're like, oh, we should definitely improve the intake process. So again, it was the intake or the virtual reception space in the beginning, the onboarding and consultation. That's the one I'm working on right now to make it more efficient for me to go from consult to consult faster with accurate data and notes. Is it the case management? Within the case management, making sure that you have a program that integrates with other programs that's easy to use, and and a lot of them, like I mentioned, are using AI tools for reading documents like OCR, and then helping to put that data into like an intake of some sort, a questionnaire. And then I think the other one that a lot of time can be saved is in the research and drafting space. And there's a lot of great tools out there. If I'm sharing a lot of them with my team, I usually do like beta testing with some companies and explore. And those are the ones that I'm wanting to make sure that we're saving as much time as possible. And then the marketing and client communication. And with the client communication, I also wanted to mention that those programs where you can do an automated or check-in, letting them know that, there's no big update, like it's called no update update. Being able to just know that you got their back and that they're and there's different programs like I mentioned, Whole Nine Keys Test, but that have portals, and maybe you have a portal with your case management software. But you can automate an email once a month that just says there's no update or this is the last update. Let us know if you have any questions. Honestly, by being able to do that, I think some attorneys are sort of concerned that they are attracting more communication unnecessarily. But I think if you really lean into that and you're consistent and reliable, you're very likely going to reduce unnecessary communication because they're going to be more aware of what's going on. Just like I was talking about with Amazon or the Domino's Pizza tool. You're like, I know what's going on. I don't need to go and ask. And if you're ahead of that game, then you can reduce the callbacks and all the emails. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like my team is just responding to the emails about what's the status and not being able to actually do the work. So there's a lot of tools out there. I think one of the other big things is try to use what you already have. Make sure that you know what features what you're already paying for has. And that's why one of the biggest things I would say, if you're listening to this conversation, is to do an audit of your tech stack, because you're probably paying for a lot of stuff and you might not need it, or you might not be using it properly. And then that the whole having someone in the team that is dedicated to knowing how to use that tool and constantly training the team and getting educated on those features and communicating with the vendor to be able to say what's going on, if there's any problems. Usually another good tip is to try to communicate with the vendor that you're using before and see if they can fix things before you abandon ship with them. Because I know for me, when I changed case management software, it was a lot of work, but I had tried to make some amends with the program I was using, and it just wasn't working. So keep those in mind. Having somebody in charge of monitoring it, doing an audit of your tech stack on a regular basis, check and making sure that you're staying on top of like the training with your team. And then after you've done that, go and keeping in mind your biggest pain point, go in and try to find what tools can help you be more efficient. Um, okay, so when I knew we were going to change case management software a few years ago, I really wanted to get buy-in. So this is my story of what happened. 2019, I go to AVA Tech Show for the first time and I'm like so excited about it. And then what I realized is that I'm like, oh, these I had to set it and forget it for my case my all my tech stack. And so then I looked around as like a kid in a candy store and I was like, oh, these are so fun. These are so great. How come I didn't know about this? So anyway, I was wanting to get everything. But then I was like, well, that's expensive. Okay, so let's take it one step at a time. So I got a consultant to help me implement things, and we were going to go on a big shift to change a couple, like our main case management software and our CRM and some other stuff. Well, long story short, it was too much of a shock to the system. I didn't have the buy-in. We didn't have the right people in the right seats. And I think some of the things I was being told about some of the programs were not truly the case at the time. And so it was a host of different issues. One of the biggest takeaways I took from that is don't change everything all at once. Definitely get buy-in. And really, really make sure you want to move over to whatever the product is. So those were some really good tips. We later moved over to a different case management software this is 2025. So we did it, I think, in 24. So about 5 years later, I did things differently. I had buy-in from my team. We trained, we got them excited about it. We moved over from one case management software after like 15 years or 14 years to another one. Huge, a lot of change, a lot of a disruption in that space. But then we slowly went step by step and started going and cleaning up our case CRM and then our connection to our QuickBooks online. And then just now we're into like more exciting territory because we've had a good year plus under our belt of that change. So don't do what I did in the beginning. But if you ever want to talk about it, because I know this is a lot. So checking out when you go to a trade show of some sort, they showing you a lot of different things, and you want to get those, you want to try those out and get sample or check it out. But you also want to have the right people involved in helping you. And then eventually, when you do get whatever program, you want to make sure that you have trainings on a regular basis. Even us, we've had this case management software for a year, and now we're like, wait a minute, we got a whole lot of new people, and they weren't at that first bigger training we had, and so we need to constantly be training and those things like that. So anyway, just wanted to say that story. And then also be able to see all the programs you're using, like how much time are you saving? I'm working with a company called Candle AI that does email automation drafting. And they were talking to me like, before we start more fully, let's definitely have some metrics on how we can gauge whether we're being efficient and successful. And I really love that because I think sometimes we just take on a program. We know there's a pain point. We go on to a new program, but we don't really sit down and say, what are we trying to solve? And so I love that. If you know how much time things are taking, which is going back to that time audit, or how long does it take to get scheduled for a consult? How long does it take to respond back to a client? What are your errors? One of my colleagues told me that through his AI technology, he was able to figure out that one of his team members had dyslexia because they were making some mistakes and cases were getting rejected, and they were able to pinpoint it down to through the reports. I was fascinated about that because I would realize that I don't know how many of us really had that much data to be able to figure that out. He has a very high volume practice, but um, anyway, I found that very fascinating, and I think another reminder that the more data we have, the more it's what's measured matters, and Peter Drucker, what the more we know, the more we can use that data to make wise decisions for our practice. Um, the sooner we can address the concerns early. There is bias in the AI tools. I don't know. I shared the story when I was making images for my book. Um, I would make it on ChatGPT, and I would say like put a image of an attorney in a boardroom. Every single time, it would always be a male. Every single time, every time I asked for a photo, if I didn't clarify, I just started noticing trends. And if it was a female, there was a lot of is very voluptuous and a lot of cleavage. I was like, no, no, no. Oh, okay, how do I describe this? So I guess I learned to be better at my prompt engineering, but at the same time, it was a very clear example of sort of that bias, wanting to make sure that you're teaching your team about that, but also the privacy, and not just using any tool, only ones that you allow them and you vetted. And then that whole expression of like, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. So being very careful about not using free programs um, with client data. Um, it's you just have to really be training your team on that. So you don't have to overhaul the whole thing to see improvement. And it could be a long process, like I was mentioning what happened to me. But find out what like we talked about, what are your biggest pain points where you would want to work on improving, and then being able to start focusing on that. But then also, don't get too focused on the nitty gritty on that one. Be also mindful of how it's all going to interact. Because if you get a program over here that doesn't play well with the program over here, then you're going to be regretting that you put all that effort into that. So what I usually say is make sure that you like your anchor case management software program, and then make sure that whatever you integrate with that is integratable. And the definition of integrate is all over the map with software. But anyway, that's another pain point. And that you are going to be happy with that one. And because it creates like this domino effect or cascade of all the different programs that you're using. I think most of the main leaders in this space are now, they're cloud and they're AI, open AI friendly, and so that's great. That's where we need to be right now. So you want to put these plans in motion. To feel free to put in the Q&A. I see there's one question I need to answer, but um, how are you? Did you today? Did you find a pain point? Feel free if you want to share what it is. What are you thinking you're going to do after today's talk to help better serve your practice and to save time? So choose an area, maybe one of those 5 different buckets I said, that you want to improve. Like I said, I'm moving on to the onboarding intake process because that affects me a lot. I've already worked on a lot of the other areas, and now I'm like, this one's the one I need to work on. And then we're having regular meetings about it. We're evaluating tools. Sometimes when you don't have enough team members for something, we just create a committee. And that committee has different team members that best can provide feedback and can be working on that topic. So we're going on the onboarding intake process actually. And the AI is moving so quickly. So one of the things besides going to the tech conferences, I like to listen to different podcasts. Recently, someone mentioned Hard Fork. I just started listening to that one. But there's lots of different leaders in the space. There's a lot of legal tech journalists that they do like a weekly webinar update on what's going on. So I would say we subscribe to maybe 1 or 2 AI newsletters, listen to a couple of podcasts, follow a few people on LinkedIn on a regular to see what they're saying. And then I would definitely attend ABA Tech Show in in March in Chicago in 2026. But there's a lot of other case management software programs are having their own their own little conference, like Lex with Filevine is having one with Lex, and then KSTAS is having one. My case is having one this fall. Kaleidoscope CleoCon is having one. So there's a lot of them are starting to have their own. And that's another way to help train your team on how better to use the program. So use we're working on finding ways to be as efficient as possible with the tools that we have, and before we add more team members. And that's another key point that I want to mention is that how can we better be efficient, and pass on that efficiency and productivity and the profitability, is by leveraging the technology that we have to be able to not have to reinvent the wheel or have more team members unnecessarily. Sometimes we have team members because we say this is how many team members we have, but maybe they're not being used as efficiently because back to the original, maybe they're mailing letters instead of using email. And so if you think about that, how would you say you would better want to be more efficient? I'll check the notes here, the Q&A, but I think we're up at the top of the hour. I really appreciate the time with you all today. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I can send you a list of some of the programs and tools that I mentioned and I highly suggest or to take a look at, and some of the programs I mentioned. But we have my book, Power Up Your Practice, has 25 chapters of law practice management, amazingness, and including 2 on marketing. And then we have a podcast called Power Up Your Practice, which is a great resource. Lots of different guests. I'm always looking for guests. If you're interested, tell me. And I think if you want, just connect with me on LinkedIn as a place to connect. And I have a school community, SKOOL, called Power Up Your Practice. Um, and I really appreciate the time today. And let's take a look at some of the questions, but I know we are towards the end of our time together.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was fantastic. Now we can definitely go straight into the Q&A. Let's go ahead and get started. The first question I see here is from, pardon me if I pronounce your name incorrectly, Fenella. Just wondering how to use or integrate AI for compliance purposes.
Um, I think I need a little bit more like clarity on more specifically how that question. It seems a little bit broad. I don't know, compliance with the particular area of law or compliance with ethics. So feel free to, oh, yeah, thanks. Feel free to put maybe more clarity on that. These questions are good. And I feel like you guys are really challenging me on these questions in these last few. So I thought I was done, but no, I might have to do a little research on these. You're catching me off guard. No, but that's great. And feel free to email me about that one and I'll put my LinkedIn in here, or if you can put it for other people, I'm not sure. But yeah, feel free to go to the next question, I think.
Fenella did provide clarification to her question,
Oh,
so we
okay.
can definitely go back to it. She did say it was with regards to ethics.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, there's a lot of different information coming out and requirements. It's also specific to state as well. And so I think that's where you need to lean into your state bar and different resources to see what you're ethically bound to. And that's why staying on top of all of this is important because it can be late breaking. Usually what happens is that the bars are not as quick to adapt to what's going on in society and life as we need them to be. And so, when in doubt, it's best to just be more conservative and to communicate as much as possible. For example, like if you're wanting to say, I think it's probably best. I think this might have been clarified recently, but to let clients know that you're using AI. But I've heard this conversation, maybe an agreement or something like that. But I've heard this conversation being like, at some point, it's almost like saying, I'm using email to communicate with you. Or like it just becomes a normal tool that everyone expects that it's being used. But we're sort of in this frontier space right now where like what is required of us is not exactly clear. But even though not all states have the requirement of like technological competency, I think that's the best approach, as well as making sure that you are reviewing the small print, which you can also use AI to help you review the small print on the confidentiality. And I think just making sure that you are either not putting client data in programs that you're not paying for, and also with paid ones, making sure that information is not being shared. And the other good point is that some of these legal tech programs out there, they know about this issue, and so they're more tailored for our needs. When they're not a legal tech program, then they might not be as concerned about that. And so those are just some general ideas, but feel free to email me or reach out to me and I can help give you some more resources.
Great. So the next question is from an anonymous attendee, but is it ethical to use words as written by AI, for example, in a brief, if it is perfect, or do I have to change it?
Um, I think that it's ethical to use it as it is. I mean, you're probably doing it for just different parts, and you're probably still going to be tweaking it. If it was written by AI, I know there's different takes on whether or not I think that you can still use it. I mean, we do like if you see the wording is pretty amazing. We're like, okay, we'll keep that. But we also use it as a draft in the first place, and then we tweak it as we need it. So
Great. And I do want to be conscious of your time. Do you still have time to go through the rest of the
I'll
questions?
probably go for maybe one more. But I think maybe the best would be I want to take the one about looking ahead about how AI shift traditional law firm business models. I really like that question. Anybody else that it's something I didn't cover, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If that we could share my link, and that's probably a really good place to go. Um, I really love Jordan Furlong, and he had his article out in a year ago, and it was about like the three essential roles lawyers will play in the post AI era are to advocate, advise, and accompany. And I think that there's a lot of talk about how people say that we're going to replace we're not going to be needed or something like that. I don't think that's the case. I think what we're going to realize is that we're going to be able to shave off a lot of redundant and unnecessary wasteful time by leaning into AI and technology and automation, so that we can be doing more of what our highest, best case use of our energy and expertise. And so the firms that get to that space the fastest and are winning in that space and understanding how better to serve their clients, considering how they're being interacting with and served by other industries. I think they're going to be the ones that are going to be the leaders in the future. And it's going back to what I first said about, are you a one, you're, ostrich with the head in the sand, or are you something else? Maybe you want to get closer to that, in the innovation audit, a curve. You want to be more of that innovator or early adopter space. So you're being on top of things so that you can stay competitive and relevant. And so things are changing. And so if you're not on the bandwagon, you better get on it. And I'm glad you probably are somewhere because you watched today's webinar. So
Fantastic. All right, guys. So we wanted to thank you all again for joining us today for another Justia webinar. And once again, thank you so much, Ruby, for your wonderful presentation. It was incredibly informative and I loved every bit of it. Now, I did also want to remind you all, as I did at the top of our presentation, of the services available to you through our website platform, Justia Elevate, our innovative feature-packed website solution designed specifically for law firms. Built on a powerful WordPress platform, Justia Elevate offers tools like the Justia AI Writer, as well as the AI-powered Justia Chat to enhance your leads. You'll have everything you need to stand out online. Plans start at just $82.50 per month when paid annually. You can check your pricing at elevate.justia.com/price or call 888-587-8421. And we hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thanks again for joining.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next video.